Do 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 do. We've got sword fighting and dragons. Yeah, yeah, we got incest and beheadings too. Da da, and that's all we're gonna do for that. Welcome to the Game of Thrones edition of the Serious TV Drama Podcast. I'm Scott, and joining me tonight, the gentle giant's bane of Kentucky. It's Brian.
Hey Scott, how you doing?
I am doing fine, Brian. Brian, as some of you probably will remember, had joined us last year for a number of our Better Call Saul podcasts. Did you join us for Legion also once, I think? I feel like you did.
Yeah, season 2. I think we did several Legion casts.
Yeah, I think Dan might have checked out during that season, at least for part of it. Understandably, the more I think about that season. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Legion. Although I am looking forward to that third season. But you have generously offered to fill in for Jamie this week. It is possible you might return for other podcasts later on, or it might just be Jamie. I don't know. The only thing I kind of know at this point, unlike what I was saying in our previous podcast, I don't think Dan's going to be joining the Game of Thrones podcast over the next month or so, because he hasn't watched them yet. I don't think he's going to bother for at least for several weeks. You know, there's a remote chance he might binge the 5 episodes, watch the finale, and do that with us. I don't know, but this might be. We might have a string of Dan-less podcasts, so I apologize to the people who I know probably get a bigger kick out of listening to him and his acerbic way of letting the steam out of my podcasting, as he is wont to do. But hopefully we can still manage, even without the presence of the Viking Prince himself. You're just chuckling over there, Brian. Anyway.
I am chuckling, yes, for sure.
So, we are here to discuss the second episode of this final season of Game of Thrones. Once again, and I believe they're just going to do this for every single episode. Although it'd be funny if they don't do it for the finale. They should just call the finale The End or something like that. We found out the title after it had aired. The title was A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And I'm gonna kind of sort of stick to what I said in the last episode about not really doing a recap. Although, I'm sort of cheating. It's like we're not, but we are. Because we're going to march through this episode pretty much chronologically, scene by scene. I have reasons why I want to do it that way. They hopefully will become evident by the time we finish. And speaking of that, as far as addressing any negativity this episode might have gotten from some folks out in the social media land, I would prefer to wait until after we've broken down the entire episode. Before whether or not either myself or Brian, because I think me and Brian might actually be on the same page on this one. Whether we want to respond to that, whether it be an argument or a rant or whatever, let's go through the whole episode first, because I think that would thus lay a foundation for any argument or rant that we may be inclined to unleash. Unless we don't. We don't know if we're going to do that. It's a early podcast cliffhanger. Okay, so let me move on to the actual episode so you guys can actually hear Brian speak, because he's a heck of a lot more fun to listen to than I am at times. This episode begins with Jaime before, let's call it the council of Daenerys, Sansa, and Jon, as well as pretty much, all the other major citizenry that are hanging out in Winterfell. You see everyone from Brienne and, Lady Mormont, etc., all in the room. And of course, Tyrion. So, I was kind of looking forward to this since last week, because I don't think Jaime realized quite the lion's den, golden lion, that he was walking into here. I mean, he knew he was probably going to have to deal with, some Starks. I don't think he knew Dany was there yet, and he certainly didn't know. He certainly, absolutely did not know that Bran was going to be there. So, other than what I thought about the rather amazing acting that was going on, especially in the looks that different characters were giving each other throughout the scene, what was your take on it, and so on, Brian?
Excuse me.
Perfect
I
timing.
thought yeah, perfect. I have to cough as soon as you call on me. The acting was superb. The danger Jamie's in becomes apparent. You see he's disarmed. You see in the look on Tyrion's face that he knows this really is a big moment. You see John's distracted. You see Sansa throughout this episode being very regal, but listening. I thought it was a wonderful episode, and this scene really started things off by establishing the tone of we're bringing all these people together and sorting out the difficulties in their relationships. And you start with, obviously, what could be more difficult than you killed my dad. So it sort of starts there. But I thought it was great. And to the people that have wondered about the pacing, I mean, we end with Jamie and Bran, and they start right off the bat, like, putting this up and getting this right out in front. So I thought it was great. And if you do a rewatch, there are so many characters in these shots now because we have all these characters together. There's a lot of great face acting.
Yeah.
And, if you rewatch and watch the background, there's just wonderful face acting. So I thought it was wonderful scene and set the tone for the whole episode.
Right. I don't think some folks realize how difficult it is to deal with putting together these scenes they're dealing with so many major and even minor characters all at once. Because for a good deal of the stretch of Game of Thrones, you were dealing with multiple storylines, all around the whatever globe this is. I don't know if it's Earth or not. I still never figured that out. But therefore you have while it was never a streamlined show, but you could pretty much you had scenes with just a normal amount of people, except when they would have something big happen. Like Joffrey's wedding had a lot of people in it. That was unusual for the show at that time. And they started to do this more in season 7, both good and actually I would never say it was bad, but it was one of those. That's where that phrases like fan service might come into play. I'm 50-50 on that whole referring to something as fan service. Mm-hmm. Other than if it's something like, okay, they're aware that this is going to be something that would be asked about or questioned. Some things I don't think can be fan service because I'd be like, well, they probably shot that scene over a year ago, and we've only been talking about it the last month or so. Pretty sure that wouldn't count as fan service, that kind of a thing. I think what's really powerful about this scene, and I will say, this is an episode where there should be like a drinking game, and I'll say what things should be a drinking game for this episode, and also a Kleenex game, because this is the first scene that I started to get a little bit choked up. And again, the person I watched this episode with will be the first to attest to me being way too easy a crier, apparently. I was getting teary just looking at just Jamie looking at Brienne, defending him. And Sansa looking. I was like, oh, so much good stuff going on all in this one scene. But I think most people's takeaway from that scene is Brienne's defense of Jamie and how that is really what carries the day here. Because she's the one who convinces Sansa. And Jon, who really doesn't want any part of these decision makings, I think, he's like, we can always use another hand for, fighting, even though you only got the one, but, which makes him kind of handicapped. But I couldn't resist. But most notable thing about Jon in that scene, before we move to the next one, is, did you notice? I think I blinked and missed this when I watched it the first time, but when I watched it the second time, that Jon totally avoids trying to making any real eye contact with Daenerys and just kind of makes a swift exit once they all rise, because he just, he doesn't even want to get into the whole, oh, by the way, I'm your nephew thing just
right.
yet. So I like it, I'm getting out of here.
He puts his head down and just goes around her. He doesn't even look at her.
Yeah, he totally just like, just gotta get away. Oh, forgot to mention, did check out the opening credit sequence to see if it followed suit from last week and showed any kind of progression as far as what the storyline is. It did. Couple things. Obviously, we are seeing the icy blue tiles making their way a heck of a lot closer to Winterfell on the map. You will also notice, if you watch the opening credit sequence, that you can see that they've put in all like the trenches and all the armaments all around the castle by Winterfell on the map as well, which is kind of really kind of funny and entertaining. I don't know if there's much in the way of changes beyond that, but that's certainly enough. Just forgot to mention that. Probably won't be much different next week. The week after that, there'll probably just be a burning cinder that was Winterfell. No, I'm kidding. Although, no, I'm not. But we'll get to that at the end.
Right.
So we move from the council scene to just Daenerys and Tyrion, and I guess Jorah and Varys were right behind them. Basically, this is the "you're a traitor or a fool" conversation. I was feeling really bad for Tyrion, but I kind of couldn't really disagree with Daenerys either during that scene.
It's really been quite a bunch of failure for Tyrion. And, at this crucial moment, he defends his brother. And I watched it again too. I saw the way Sansa talked about Brienne and how I trust her absolutely. And, Brienne's sort of been her person that has protected her. And I think that Daenerys wants to believe that of Tyrion, but Tyrion has, he's made some questionable decisions.
Right. And I don't know if I'm defending Tyrion exactly. I would say that the characters on the show, they're like, I'm totally pulling this out of my butt right now. So, but I'm so proud of this. I'm going to say it anyway. They're mostly like, at best, they're like baseball players because they fail easily the majority of the time. Tyrion's decision making, be it with trying to help wage war for Daenerys, even to some extent, not all, but some extent with Blackwater. Although he was like the overlooked hero for the most part there. But he's made a lot of bad decisions. But Jaime hasn't made a lot of great decisions either. Brienne is the worst bodyguard that's ever lived. That's
right.
That's why I love the when you were saying like, oh, he's playing like, well, yeah, after she kind of like blew it, and the one time Sansa actually got that candle lit, Brienne's not there. Like, oh well, more raping. But yes, I made a joke. I'm horrible. But and you can kind of go down like Jorah. How many times has he failed? A lot. But even Danny wasn't doing too great a job in Marine and all those other places. But of course, failure makes us stronger. It builds character, and we certainly have a lot of characters in this episode. This is very much a character-centric and episode rather than plot-centric, which I guess is what bothered some people. We'll wait till later. The scene after that is the first little Arya Gendry scene, which it's one of those realizations when you realize, oh, not only does Arya have no idea what a White Walker would look like, or a White Walker is essentially a white. It's the same. Those terms are used interchangeably, correct? Isn't it the same thing?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It sounds a little bit weird to call them whites because it sounds like then we're having we're discussing race rioting or something. But
Right.
Although I may be making a joke along those lines a little bit later in this podcast. Spoiler. So, but I would not have forgotten that she had not. There's no reason why she would have ever seen a White Walker before, even though it was just last season, and I just finished the binge a couple weeks ago. Kind of forgot. Oh yeah, Gendry. He would know what a White Walker looks like. I do love the idea that he was doing such a crappy job of describing him. She was like, hello, what do they look like? What do they fight like? What do they smell like? All that stuff. And I guess it's the first time that he really gets a sense of just who or what Arya has become at this point since the last time he saw her. I guess technically years ago. I guess it would be in the Showtime.
Yeah, long time.
But she does pull out her, I always forget his name. I'm doing it again because he's not on the show anymore. The guy from the House of Black and White. I always want to call him Jacques. Jacques? You know what I'm talking about?
Her mentor who took her into the House of Black and White. Jaqen H'ghar.
Yeah, thank you. Because she's starting to sound like him a little bit. Death has many faces. I'm interested in seeing this one. She's all here for the fight. So that's so cute. Won't be so cute a little bit later in the episode, but we'll see how we feel about that one. The next scene. I love this little moment between Jaime and Bran, and I like that at least in this episode, Bran gets to be a little bit more than just the guy. Just like what did I call him last week? Like Mystic Spock in Professor X's chair or something like that, where he's just totally. Well, first of all, he actually has a sense of humor in this episode. I thought. I mean, the one thing I left out when we were talking about that first scene is the fact that he actually quotes Jaime, "The things we do for love," is one of my favorite moments in the entire episode. Of course, every time I hear it, I think of the song, "The Things We Do for Love." But you know the song, right?
Yeah, and that's a double-edged quote too, because like is it his love maybe for Brienne?
Yeah. So look at you, so smart, right? But I realize now, ever since Bronn has became the truly became the three-eyed raven, a lesser drinking game would have been. How many times does Bronn quote something he heard someone say that he could not have possibly ever heard, but now he's all knowing? Like he did that to Littlefinger,
right,
last season. Now he's done it to Jaime. Although he would remember it. It would be the last thing he heard. Excuse me. No, he was actually there for that. That I corrected myself before anyone could point it out to me. He was there for that. I'm just amazed that he remembered that. My favorite little thing about their little scene here, when they're talking about, because Bronn obviously is the character who kind of can see the part that everyone still has to play. You almost wish someone could just go up to him and say, "So, how many of these people are going to die next week or not?" Because I'm thinking a lot of them are going to die.
Well, his part in what he knows, knowing the past, present, and future, supposedly, is kind of confusing because he does say to Jaime, "How do you know there's a tomorrow?" And so, which either suggests that's what he needs to tell Jaime, or that even despite everything he does, there are still pieces on the board that could change what those things are at any given time. That are beyond his control to manipulate.
I agree. I do want to point out, and not to be. I'm the last one when it comes to, especially in a show like Game of Thrones, wants to be the perfectionist correcting people. But I want to point. He actually says, "How do you know there is an afterwards?" Because he's not the only. He's not the only character who says that line in this. A line like that in this episode. So it's kind of it's almost like a trope of the episode. It's like talking about afterwards, because later on in the episode that's said as well. and like not knowing what happens afterwards, if there is going to be an afterwards. I don't remember which
Right.
scene it is or who says it because I didn't write a note about that, but it does happen. Might have been Samwell, might have been Jonathan.
It does, but it's most chilling coming from him because it's the most.
Yes.
You give him the omniscient,
Yes.
ideal so it's the most disturbing coming from him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's the only character, at least who has that kind of potentially prescient way about him, because we know he can see the past, we know he can see the present, and he can warg into other creatures and pretty much see everything. I'm still not clear as far as whether he has any ability to see the future or not. I get the feeling he has a sense of the future, even if he can't see it clearly, but he has a sense of what it is. But that's just my guess, I guess.
I agree with that.
After that, we have a Jaime Tyrion scene, which I think I wouldn't call it. Again, I will steer away from terms like fan service, but it certainly answers a question that was in a lot of fans' minds. I'm going to say it answers it because they just outright say it. When Tyrion gets confirmation from Jaime that Cersei is indeed pregnant, because it's said in such a way which I feel it's the writer saying, yes, she is. She is. If you weren't sure, she is. That's the way I took that to me.
That's how I took it too.
This is also repeating a thing from this season, both a couple times in this episode as well as even in the first episode, where basically Tyrion's intelligence or cleverness is questioned, or his weaknesses. I think he says that clever people always underestimate their opponents, or something along those lines, or something like that. But as far as I've mentioned before, a drinking game, this is the first time of many times in the episode someone says, "We're going to die," or "We're all going to die." It's said a bunch of times in the episode. I think Tyrion says, "I can't believe that they're going to die at Winterfell." So,
but did you notice there was an interesting thing in this scene? Did you notice that as he was saying, at least Cersei won't be the one that gets to kill me, that there were those flaps on the side where there were bowmen, like looking out of those flaps on the side of Winterfell?
yes.
Like looking down where he and Jaime were standing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is he going to get crossbow bolted? And because, I mean, it's like the perfect thing, at least Cersei won't get me. And you see a perfect spot for a bowman, to shoot him. And so, I think Tyrion might be in trouble.
Oh, well, I know there's a lot of people thinking that Tyrion, there's a very strong likelihood Tyrion's going to, I mean, I might have mentioned in the last podcast, I could definitely see a path to Tyrion getting killed off. Do I think they're going to kill off Peter Dinklage in the third episode and then have 3 more to go? I want to say no, but this is Game of Thrones. If there's one show that might try to get away with something like that, it would be this show. I'm still inclined to say that's not going to happen yet. I do think there's a very good chance he won't survive the series, but I don't think it's going to happen in this episode. But we shall see. There are other people, as we're going to go through, that I think are, oh yeah, you're not making it past episode 3. It's just not going to happen. I would be shocked. In fact, the very next scene might have a few of those people.
Mm-hmm.
So the next scene, we have Brienne watching over Podrick training once again. Podrick has now really become something with a sword. And Jaime approaches Brienne during the scene. Love this. This was just great stuff. The pride, having the pride in what Podrick has accomplished, whatever. But more of the stuff, once again, between Jaime and Brienne, which I think, when all is said and done, the heart of this whole episode was the Jaime-Brienne relationship and how far it's come and what it led to in this episode. So this was this was just another nice step in that relationship that proceeds throughout the episode. And I love that progression in the episode of this relationship and what it leads to.
Oh, I thought this was probably the second time I got misty, because when he humbles himself to her, it's the first time she's completely disarmed by that. Like, you could see that she didn't know how to respond. And in that moment of him coming to her and finally saying, like, you're worthy, and you're so worthy, I would put myself under your command, it was really something. And in a way, based on Brienne's idea of service and what she wants, I mean, I don't think there's any greater honor to her and her code than for someone to pledge themselves to someone.
Right.
And that's in essence what Jamie did. Like,
yes.
say, I'm yours, lead me.
Exactly. He kind of followed suit with the way she goes about things.
Yes.
It's the kind of thing that she would have said, that she would say to someone that she approaches, whatever, that she holds in such regard or respect, that she would be honored to fight for them, fight under them, serve under them, which, is essentially what we've seen her do, kind of like throughout the series. We originally see her doing that with Renly, then she does it with Caitlin. Is it Catelyn or Caitlin? Did I just mispronounce it? Is it Catelyn? Caitlin.
I say Catelyn, but
okay.
I'm not gonna. You're not gonna be crucified by me if
we
you say Caitlin.
We know who I mean.
Yeah.
And then she
Cat.
said, Cat. Just say Cat, right? And she essentially has done that with, and essentially ended up doing that with Sansa as well. So yeah, and I agree. It's the. I mean, I think most, if not all, of my mistiness was always Brienne Jamie related throughout this episode, and this was the next one. It's not the big one, but it's getting a little choked up. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly.
So after that, we get Daenerys and Jorah. So this is the scene when he basically defends Tyrion, and even though it's done off screen, he also apparently convinces her that she needs to make nice with Sansa. I kind of like this too, because even though we haven't spent as much screen time on it, late last season or this season, mainly because they were separated, it kind of showed a couple different forms of evolution. Not just the relationship between Daenerys and Jorah, which has gone through a lot since the very beginning of this show, but also Jorah and Tyrion. Because when you think of how they started out, when he was his captor, and he even talks in the scene about how he couldn't stand him, he just couldn't stop talking. But now, again, it's about respect. And I think he has a huge amount of respect for Tyrion, and truly believes that despite whatever mistakes he's made, he's the right man to be, hand to the queen. And as he points out, as we were talking earlier, yeah, he makes mistakes. We all have made mistakes, and at least I think he says at least he owns them. He admits his failures and owns them, which is something I think we always talk about leaders that way. We always have a greater respect for leaders who can admit their shortcomings or their mistakes, and then learn from them and move past them. And we have less regard for those who don't seem to be as willing or capable of doing that in history.
Yeah, Jorah really makes the case that because of Tyrion, the way he is, that's why he's perfect for her. And I think there's a subtle subtext here going into the idea of, Daenerys has been impulsive and rash, and, I think someone who is a little more contemplative is a good balance for her, and Jorah sees that. And it shows his growth that I mean, he wanted to always be by her side because he started respecting her, grew to love her, and he's willing to step aside and let Tyrion be the one at her side. And I thought it was a touching scene, and it also is one of those things, if you're ticking the boxes for like, grand gesture, is Jorah gone? And
that's he's definitely in the running of more likely than less likely as far as
yes, for sure.
But we'll address that later. Maybe not. So, and again, he clearly, they cut away from it. He clearly convinced her to go approach Sansa, which is the next scene. It's the Sansa Daenerys scene. Really like the scene. I gotta say, look, I know there's a number of anti-Sansa people out there. I get that. Person I watch it with is an anti-Sansa person. And while I wouldn't say it's the same as when I would watch Mad Men, there were anti-Betty people, or when or things of that nature. There's a few other shows and characters like that. I think Sansa's come such a long way as a character. While I thought Arya referring to her as the smartest person she knows seemed a bit of a stretch. I was like, so you haven't met Tyrion or Varys, or I can think of it, but she's definitely come a long way because of all of her experiences and have built her, or built her up to what she's become as. Because now, I mean, even just a couple of years ago, I don't think anyone would have seen Sansa as being like a real leader of her people. Now she is. I mean, she most absolutely is. It just as much as Daenerys is, and Daenerys kind of uses that as, part of their bonding here. The bonding that doesn't last very long, but the brief bonding. I have no problem with Sansa calling her out, but what about the North? I think totally appropriate for her to say it. So, what was your take on it? How did you feel about it?
I thought that Sophie Turner's stature and her posture were so precise and regal. I mean, she rose to her full height to let Daenerys know, I'm a force to be reckoned with. And then they sit down and talk. There's a moment of warmth. But then what Sansa's learned is, you can't ever take anything for just the moment you're in.
Right.
You have to be looking beyond that. And what's the long game? And you can't get sucked in by today because you have to be thinking moves ahead. And she's looking ahead to the North, which is, the people there don't like Dany. They don't trust Dany. You saw the look the Knight of the Vale gives her as he walks out to leave them alone.
Right.
And her people wouldn't respect her if she just immediately kissed her ass and started following her. Her people want the North to be strong, and I think she reflects what her people were. And let me just say, her outfit, I mean, I'm not like a fashion guy, but her outfit was kind of badass too, like that sort of weird chain thing with the the ring with the chains off of it. It was badass.
I also think I think that she's been visiting the same designers as Cersei, who again, as we said last week, for good and bad, has definitely been a major influence on Sansa. Only hopefully the difference is, I think Sansa has learned, but she's still trying to wield that power, quite honestly, for the North, for the people, whereas Cersei's really doing it for herself / what remains of the Lannister family, which in her mind now is her.
Right.
Because certainly not her brothers anymore. This scene bleeds right into Sansa, Dany, and Theon showing up, and that tugged at my heart unexpectedly. I have to confess, because I, for the most part, never been a Theon fan. I don't know how many people really are Theon fans, but that moment, I kind of had to give it up for the guy, and it kind of worked, and it was the most emotional I think we've seen Sansa in this new season. Despite all these other people coming back and returning and whatever, this is the one that's really had the kind of the impact on her because of him helping to essentially rescue her from the clutches of Bolton a ways back.
I found this emotional too, and I think there's something to the idea that the two of them endured a horror with Ramsay that no one else could understand. That they have that bond of surviving that, and they shared that together. And and it was again, here's Theon returning to pledge himself to her, and he came to help, and he came to help her. He came to help the North. He came to help the Starks. And, I find as I'm talking about it, I'm involuntarily getting goosebumps. That it was very emotional, and seeing her break because she's been so composed. That moment she broke and sort of the emotion came out. I thought it was well acted and it affected me.
Yeah, I agree as well. That's totally. Speaking of emotional, there might have been a few people out there who got a little bit, just a twee bit like, oh, in the next scene when you have Sir Davos, yay, the Onion Knight himself, Gilly, we hadn't seen for a bit here, and let's just call it this little grayscale girl, who's basically a stand-in for Princess Shireen. It was a sweet little moment. I mean, it might have spawned a few memes that were kind of funny, I have to admit, after the fact. But actually, these 2 episodes, I don't remember there ever being that many Game of Thrones memes ever. And now it's like I'm not even. I will not even bother recounting them at this point. I get them texted and messaged to me. I see them on Facebook. I see them here, there, and everywhere. It's just insane. But it was a sweet little moment in the episode, poignant. I can't say it was. It's the first scene that maybe I wouldn't say was necessary, but it still worked for me. I didn't. It's not like it took up that much time anyway. But plus, any time you get to spend with Davos, I think is worthwhile. I mean, I'm not a big Gilly fan, but is it Chili or Gilly? I call it Gilly.
Gilly.
Yeah, it's Gilly. I forget it was, but it's a little bit of a callback as well to to Shireen and all that. So I kind of enjoy. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's not like they stretched it out too long, I thought.
I thought it was great. And when you talk about Davos, I've never podcasted about Game of Thrones, but the people around me that we talk about Game of Thrones know my favorite character in the whole show is Davos. I think he is the, if you want to talk about the person who's made the most right decisions and been right the most,
yes,
it's probably Davos. People have often not listened to him. The only mistake he made was he was in service to a man who was willing to do terrible things. But had Davos been there, he would not have condoned him burning Shireen, and he would not have. Davos is a great character, and seeing this, and I thought it was really sweet the way Gilly sees what's happening. And, is a calming effect. And I got kind of touched when he said, you go down there. I tell you what, you go guard the crypts. And here's one of the running counter of crypts of how the crypts are so safe. And
I got that.
But it was sweet in the way that he didn't just shoo her like, oh, you couldn't defend anything. And I thought that one of the great things they did this whole episode is there were a number of times with women that when it could have been wrote, they were empowering of the women. And this little girl who said, I want to fight, they didn't act like she was silly or act like she was stupid. He said, you know what, I bet you could fight, and would you do me a favor and defend the crypt? And I thought that was really nice. And I thought the way Gilly handled it was really nice. And just the decency. This scene was just full of decency.
Yeah.
Between two of the most decent people on the show, Gilly and Davos.
Yeah, that makes sense. And certainly, I mean, just at Winterfell alone, you've got some of the most capable or maybe even best warriors are women. And it ranges from Arya all the way up to Brienne. And even Daenerys herself would qualify. So. Mm-hmm. Just as far as the tally, just at this point in the episode, the crypt had been mentioned, I believe, 3 times, and this is the first time we hear it being referred to as safe or the safest place. More on that tally as we press on through the episode. This is followed up by a little bit of a reunion between Jon and Tormund and Ed show up. They made their way back from the horrors of the Last Hearth. basically to let them know the dead are coming. The dead are coming. They're going to be there before dawn. Um, Not sure how they know exactly they'll be there at that point, but I'm a little confused about how fast the dead can move because it seems like sometimes they can run and sometimes they're just shambly zombie type things. I'm not. I don't know if. And I never got the sense that it matters whether they're freshly dead or not because it looks like I've seen fast moving skeletons, so I don't know what to make of. It's just like a zombie show. They seem to play with the speed of them. Not really clear what's going on here.
Yeah, but you do see at times, like in Hard Home, it seems to be that they move fast or speed up when the Night King sort of focuses his energy on them.
Okay.
Like when they all run off
Yeah.
like when they all run off the cliff, like he seems to focus them. The ones we've seen in the north, most of the time, even from the scene that the first time we see a large group of them, they don't seem to move quickly. But they obviously they played with it for story purposes, and we get the exposition that Tormund and Barrack and that crew moved around them to get there and had to go around the horde to get there. So
right,
they have a sense of where they left them, and that's why we get a sense of when they'll be there.
Right. Because they're probably galloping full speed, whereas basically the dead are taking their time because they know they're going to get there, I guess. Should also mention before we move on, the first of some of the. I know Tormund was definitely one of the more popular things about this episode, and I agree because he's hysterical. I believe he asked something along the lines of, where the big woman at? I know it's not. I know it's not how he phrased it, but that's in my mind how he phrased it. There's some delightful moments.
That would be part of the drinking game. Norman says something inappropriate or asks about Brienne.
Pretty much.
One of those things happens, you drink.
Or people look at him with either bemusement or horror.
Yeah.
The next scene's kind of a big overall encompassing scene because it's the big discussion of the war plans, where John mentions what we all know to be somewhat obvious. Hey, if you kill the Night King, that might really do the job here. As far as might take out most, if not all of them, since we've seen that connection happen in a previous episode when you killed one who probably made the others. They all would fall apart. But there seems to be some debate as to whether or not the Night King will actually show himself. But Bran thinks so because he wants Bran. Not because, he needs more fiber. He actually needs brawn. He left a mark on him. I guess that was when he was doing his little time traveling stint, and he was there. And then he actually saw him and grabbed his arm and left his mark on his arm. I guess that's what that's from. So at this point, Bran wants to be bait, and Theon offers to protect him with the Ironborn. And that was the first time in the episode. It's like, okay, so Theon is going to be the first to die. So, to me, that's pretty much a guarantee now. I'm just getting that out of the way right now. The way I'm viewing whether or not characters may actually meet their demise, and there is part of me that hates doing that because I've always railed against doing that with other shows. Whether it be the rapidly dwindling quality over the years, Walking Dead, or shows like The Sopranos, or whatever, or The Shield, where there were characters where you thought this one or that one might die, and it becomes more about almost doing a Deadpool than actually talking about the story, whatever. But good lord, they packed Winterfell with like every other character on the show, and you're going to be losing people. So it's just a matter of just determining, I got a bad feeling about you. I feel Theon's story has kind of come to a close. That he's done his redemption thing as far as he can. This would just be his final, truly redemptive act, maybe to help make up for like the burning of those two kids in place of Bran and Rickon way back when or something. Since he's obviously still tortured about the fact that he was responsible for that much. And him coming back to defend the Starks is also, trying to make up for the fact that he stabbed the Starks in the back. Even though he kind of made up for that with Sansa, but still, he still feels guilt about that as well. So I feel this is definitely going to be Theon's bye-bye in next week.
This is his sacrifice. But part of me, after seeing Theon's story, is like, if I was one of the leaders, I'd go, that's great. It would be okay if we also sent a whole bunch of Unsullied with you too. I know they want to keep it low key, but Theon, I don't know that I would let Theon maybe guard the most important person. But I agree with you. I think it will be a heroic sacrifice.
Well, they seem to indicate at some point, I don't know if it's I think it's actually during the scene. It is during the scene that in addition to Theon and the Ironborn, I think they're going to have dragons protecting Bronn. So that's what's really going to be protecting him, not Theon and the Ironborn. Of course, it bothered me during this whole scene. They do mention Daenerys' remaining dragons. No one's mentioning the ice dragon. No one.
Yeah.
And I kept going, hey, they do have that one thing that could really end this fight really fast if they really wanted to go that route. Just saying. Although I kind of want to see the battle of dragons happen because I'm curious which is more powerful, a regular dragon or an ice dragon. And is it spitting ice fire? Is it ice? Is it blue flame? What is it? I need to know. Will people erupt in flames? Will they freeze? I want to know. I don't know. I don't know. It's bothering me.
No matter what the verdict is, though, the internet war will rage about what it was.
Oh yeah.
But I agree with you. There are questions. Is the blue flame strong enough to beat both, the other dragons? And what can it do? What does it mean? It's going to be a very intriguing scenario. And it does make me wonder sort of the absence of talking about that and questioning whether he'll show is, will we not see the Night King next week?
That would be...
Makes me wonder.
You know where Night King might be? While everyone's hanging out and trying to trash Winterfell, since somehow the White Walkers can't be taught how to row boats, which makes no sense to me. Because they can't make it to Iron Island. They can't cross water. Like, why? They can't get on boats? They can wield swords and catapults, but they can't row a boat? That doesn't make any sense. Hey, but you know what does make sense? Night King can just hop on the ice dragon, flap on over to the Iron Islands, like, hi guys, bye-bye, and come right back. So that could be where he is if he's not with them. Couple things. We again hear, I think here it might be Tormund who says it, we're all going to die, or we're all going to die together, so take a drink for that one. And, again, the counter goes up. The crypt count is now at 4. The safest place count is now at 2. After this we follow that with just this brief little moment with Tyrion and Bran. And I know why we couldn't hang out with them longer. Because basically Bran is now going to tell him everything that he's experienced. But God, I would have loved to have heard that conversation. Because Tyrion, other than being one of, if not the smartest or cleverest, since they've been talking about that lately, he's one of the most intelligent characters on the show, and he's always had a great mind for history. Even if he didn't believe that, certain things actually existed, whether it be the White Walkers or dragons. But he had a good sense of what the stories were. So I love the fact that he's going to now learn all this more information from Bran, what he's gone through, and what the Three-Eyed Raven actually is, and so on and so forth. It's a combination I hadn't expected. And whenever they do combinations of characters like that, I kind of enjoy it as a result of that.
I felt similarly to you that you have probably one of the most well-read men in the entire kingdom who has a voracious mind for knowledge, that it would be really interesting to see what he would want to ask Bran, like, hey, what about this? How did this happen? Or what happened here? And, Tyrion's mind is his weapon, and Bran has this fountain of knowledge. But obviously you can't spend too much time on that. But two of the most, mentally gifted people on the show. And I agree. And I think gave a little bit, it sort of, I think, almost ticks in your mind to remember that, because with all the disappointment and things Tyrion's done, that scene sort of wakes up that part of you that goes, oh yeah, Tyrion's one of the smartest people and one of the most well-read people. And here he is with Bran.
Right. And one question before we move on to the next thing, just popped into my head. If Bran is going to relate, if we can assume that Bran, over the course of the next 15 minutes or hour, or however long they spend together before Tyrion later is hanging out by the hearth with his brother, if Bran is going to end up telling him everything that he has experienced, what he saw, does this mean that he tells Tyrion what the deal was about Jon Snow? Does Tyrion therefore know about that after spending time with Bran or not? I don't know. I kind of want to think he does, but I don't know. I'm very curious about it.
Well, Tyrion is very adept at observation, and they did notice, all of their people noticed the way Jon left the room, the chamber, after the first scene.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wouldn't take him long to catch on anyway, but I would think that he probably would get some of that information. And then the question is, what does he do with it?
Right. And chances are everyone's going to be kind of busy next week. So, which also makes me believe that, okay, Tyrion's got to survive this whole thing just so we can find out what he knows. We move on to a brief scene with Grey Worm and Missandei.
Missandei.
It's a nice little moment between them, but it does come off as one of those, oh, you sound like someone who's going to get killed off. When you start making, when characters start talking about making lofty plans of, we'll go away somewhere after this is all over. They're talking about going to her homelands, the beaches, and so on and so forth. I don't even need to recount where they're going, but he'll go there to protect her. They'll be together. Yeah, I got a bad feeling for the Unsullied, because we know they're good warriors, but they're not the dead.
This reminded me of the cop show where the cop's like, yeah, got my beach home in California and we're leaving when I retire next week. And
yes.
That gets shot.
Absolutely. Exactly. I also need to reiterate or retell a gag I mentioned last week. Again, I don't know. I think someone, my little friend, made a joke like this to me, or she'd overheard someone else say it. It's kind of a MAGA crowd there at Winterfell, so they're still looking at when Missandei is walking around. There's people who are looking at her just sneering or just get away from me. It's again, they're not used to people of color. That's why Grandma's we might not really fit in here. You'd think they would really cozy up to Dany because she's as white can be. She's even got white hair. But anyway, I just need to say that. Okay, so boop. Next scene, we have the Night Watch band is back together. We got your John, you got your Samuel, and you got your Ed, whose name I forget half the time, but thankfully I always have the captioning. I was like, oh, Ed, that's right, he's Ed. And that's where you get, I think you made a reference to it earlier, we briefly see Ghost in on the corner of the frame. Apparently, and I will confess I was not aware of this until this very week, there have been a lot of people going, hey, what happened to Ghost? Where's Ghost? What did you people do with Ghost?
Oh yeah. There are people that are like, I guess John has a dragon, so we're just, you've just screwed over Ghost. And so we got some Ghost, and there's such an outcry that one of the few things I read, one of the writers actually said, don't worry, you'll see lots of Ghosts next week. So I guess Ghost will feature in the Battle of Winterfell, which,
it's probably not going to go well for Ghost. I'm just going to say it right
now. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just sorry.
Exactly.
He will literally be a ghost. after
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah.
I just like, but he seemed just on the side of the frame like so brief, like, oh look, we've got to save the CGI budget for next week, so let's not go too crazy here. It's actually kind of a funny scene. It does recount. It does kind of remind us of how these guys would hang out on the top of the wall all the time, having these conversations. It's an amusing thing about Ed reacting to the fact that Samuel, the killer of White Walkers and lover of ladies. They're making fun of the fact that, hey, guess what Ed's never done? Bang a chick. It's kind of it's a nice little moment. Again, I get that there's a couple little moments like this in the episode which one could say, oh, it's not really doing much, but first of all, there's so few of them and they're so brief, and also, really, you don't want to let people breathe. I mean, if that's what they're talking as far as pacing is concerned, then they're misunderstanding that this is the night before all hell's going to break loose. It has to go. It has to be told this way. If you don't get that, then I don't know what to do with you. It makes me want to choke the life out of you because you're not getting something which should seem to be so elementary. See, I'm getting my ranting out now.
It raises the stakes. Like this, like having them complete the circle. The significance of that scene to me was the three of them were together on top of a freaking wall.
Yes.
Looking down, and it was like they reverted back to old times for a minute, and they all had their place in the pecking order. Sam's the one that gets made fun of, but congenially by Ed and John. But for a minute, they're out of the stress and worry of what's coming tomorrow, and they're back on top of the wall where they were. And in that moment, you need that. I think I have a real problem with people that don't want to see characters that haven't seen each other and we're supposed to believe, care about each other, go away a long time and then not spend a few minutes with them when they, reunite. Right.
I think also whether it be characters, and this applies to this episode and the previous one, because there were similar comments made about the premiere, and also be clear, those people who are saying this, whether they be social media or Twitterers or tweeters or whatever, they still represent the minority of viewers and the fans and critics, because more are saying quite the opposite than that. So they're just not getting it. Missing the point that, specifically to this episode, even more so than last week, everything is coming full circle for a lot of these storylines and a lot of these characters. And we're tying up loose ends. We're knitting together these threads together, and to a large extent, it's giving these characters these moments to shine, whether they be something as major as what we see happen with Brienne later on in the episode, or even just a little moment with Ed, or the little moment with Grey Worm I just referred to. That's also giving them a little bit of a send off, because I hate to say it, but these are again, they could pull a fast one on us and hardly anyone passes away next week, or they could go Red Wedding to the extreme and kill off more than half the cast. We don't know. We can speculate one way or the other. But when you see things being done in a certain way, it does give me that feeling like, oh, your watch has ended, so to speak. You've reached a point where, other than just you going off and dying in battle, it's okay now. I'm not going to feel, oh, there was so much more to do with Ed, or there was so much more to do with Grey Worm. Like, no, I think the storylines met their in what I think inevitable conclusion. By the way, before we move on to the next scene, after this scene, the crypt count is now at 5. Safest place count is now at 3. The next scene, which is pretty much a major scene that kind of we keep bouncing back to. It's the scene at the fire or at the hearth, whatever you want to refer to it. It starts off with, first it's Tyrion and Jaime, and then shortly thereafter Brienne and Podrick show up, which is very amusing, and then Davos, and then finally, most amusing of all, Tormund shows up. I love this. If someone has an issue with this episode, and specifically like a scene or how this entire thing plays out, I don't know what to do with you, because it not liking the scene would be like watching Jaws and not liking the scene that takes place when they're comparing their scars and singing drinking songs together, and then Robert Shaw eventually relates that whole horrible story of the USS Indianapolis. People, if you don't like this scene, then you don't like. That's like not liking that scene in Jaws. And by the way, that's the best scene in Jaws.
Yeah.
I'm floored by that possibility. And what's great is that they all have their moments of humor in this scene. It starts with Tyrion and Jamie, and they're kind of funny. Podrick and Brienne, that becomes kind of funny. Half a drink, all that. Davos is hysterical about, freezing his balls off. But Tormund just comes in and just steals everything. It's easily one of the most talked about things in the episode. He already had me by calling Jamie the King Killer. It's like, they call you the King Killer. Like, I guess some do. No, he's King Slayer. It's really funny. The story of Giant's Bane. The story that spawned 1,000 memes.
Yeah. And the chugging the milk as it runs, or the whatever he's drinking as it runs down his beard, and drinking so much that everyone's just like, okay, is he going to stop? And it just keeps going, and which makes for that uncomfortable laugh, like where, okay, now I'll laugh.
It's so funny. At that moment, it may be funnier than what you'll see in most comedies in the last year or two. The looks on these characters' faces. Jamie's look is priceless. Brienne, of course. It's just everyone. It's so. Yeah, he always drinks some sort of fermented milk. He'd referred to in a previous episode. I forget what creature the milk comes from. I don't think it's goat's milk. I don't remember what that. I apologize. I don't remember what it was, but I do remember he's always drinking some sort of weird fermented milk, so he doesn't bother with like ale or wine. Definitely doesn't drink wine. I know he's like not a wine drinker. But so very funny. So we're going to bounce back to that scene a couple more times as we start to pick it up as we're getting towards as we're getting towards the closing of the episode. The next scene, another nice little moment. Arya and the Hound, and then eventually Beric shows up. My favorite thing, because I was wondering about this, Arya's list has changed off and on over the seasons, and I've heard both names on it and then not on it, and so on and so forth. I know I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I know why Ellen Payne is no longer mentioned on her list. That's because the actor himself became horrifically sick. He might have even died by now. I'm not sure. I think he had might have been something like pancreatic cancer or something along those lines. Something really bad. And they weren't going to recast it, so they just stopped mentioning his name. But I actually had looked this up, and there was one point where she did have the guys from the Brotherhood on her list, and then when she was recounting the list another time, their names weren't there anymore, so she changed her mind about it, I guess. So when the Hound asked her, was he on your list, and she answers for a little while, she's not lying. That's absolutely true. He was on the list, and then she said, took him off.
just like the Hounds. I mean, that's the former list club drinking on the battlements that night, and it's what I like, and it's funny, but it's also poignant, and that's what this episode did so well. Is it did humor and it did emotion. It was written so well. Mm-hmm. Is it's both funny when she cuts Beric off and leaves after the Hound says, I guess the Hound cuts him off, and then she leaves and says, "I'm not listening to this crap," But it's funny that Beric's sort of Lord of Light speech gets interrupted.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Because he's heard it, but it's also like, yeah, but you don't have anybody, there's nobody here from the Lord of Light for you anymore. You're it. And so it's both funny, but kind of sad too.
Yes. Yeah, and also not to be douchey about it, but he's another one on my on my almost definite short list of, yeah, I think you're gonna die, because they went through the trouble of just recounting. Like once again, like, yeah, you've been brought back 19 times, and now there isn't the guy there to bring you back again. I think he'll die a heroic death with his flamey sword because flames don't work. But I'm pretty sure we're not going to be seeing him after next week. I don't think he's that popular a character anyway, so it wouldn't be a great loss for most people. I don't know. So yeah, Arya leaves the two old bickering dolts up on the armaments there, and where does she go? she Next scene, she goes to find Gendry. Now, talk about scenes that lit the social media world on fire. And I'm not talking about them talking when they're having a little discussion about weapons and the weapon that he's finally crafted based on her little schematic or whatever. We're talking about the brown chicken, brown cow scene here. Although it should, just before we even say it should be mentioned, this is the first time she's told that he's actually Robert Baratheon's bastard. Because before this, I think she just believed him to be, like a smith, just a guy who worked on forging weapons, whatever. Didn't realize, he's actually a bigger deal.
Right.
So, I know you had a bit to say about this online, and I thought from what I recall, you did a very nice job of covering it. So I will defer to you on this. Only I will say, and I've watched it twice. While I can understand a little bit of a kind of a reflex of like, kind of feeling, it's only because we've watched this character for so long. So it's an unusual. But I would view it the same way as like watching any character I've seen grow up from being a child literally a child on the show to reaching adulthood. And even if my mind's not thinking of them as being adult, they've reached that point. It would be like if I'll use Mad Men again. Watching, Don Draper's daughter. I mean, although when the show ended, she wasn't quite an adult yet, she was getting to that point. It was getting up there in years where something like, I just feel funny seeing her like kiss a boy, So,
right.
And with Arya, it's only because this had never been something that seemed to ever, at least to our minds, had never really been on her radar. Although one can go back, if you've, like myself and other people, if you've binged recently, you do see she's got a look on her face way back when checking out Gendry from afar. So they were very subtle, but they planted the seed. Much the way I guess he did too. But,
Spoiler.
Anyway, I'll stop. You give your defense of Arya. Arya's deflowering.
Well, I thought this was so overblown that in a series that has used women to be the object of rape, of torture, violence, to be subjects and subjugated in so many ways. Even some of the people, even some of the ones we haven't liked, like Cersei, who's sort of in many times been a victim of her own circumstance by not being a male and not being eligible to do things. You have this young woman who went off, learned this incredible ability, murdered people, did some really weird things that we were all okay with. But then when she asserts her own consensual desire to do something and takes control of the situation, people lost their shit. And I thought it was really stupid. Not that the people are stupid for feeling maybe some discomfort, but some of the stuff like, why do you need to include that? Why do you need to tell that story? That the reason you need to tell that story is Arya has been so detached from the world of emotion. She's removed herself from it to become what she's become. And she got back in touch with her human side. And, like we see in her a desire to reconnect with the humanity inside of her that night before. And not, if she's going to meet her death, to not miss a part of life. And one of the things I said too, if you look at young women, don't we want young women, young boys to be healthy in their sexuality and to be taught to be consensual, to make your choice, to pick your partner, she did all these things. Like she hasn't been with a bunch of guys running around. She liked this guy. She picked him. She went to him. And, the outcry about it, I think, is a lot of people who want to protect, young women from themselves. And obviously we're seeing a lot of that today. But I think Arya is more than capable of making her own decisions and deciding for herself. So I thought it was an empowering thing for this character, and all the hoopla is overblown.
I would say you've pretty much covered it. I don't disagree with anything you said. Totally overblown. Again, I get why there would be that kind of awkward discomfort, but only because we're just not used to it, and because we haven't grown up. Although I guess some people have. We've watched this character grow up. It can be a bit jarring because maybe it never occurred to us with her.
Right. Well, I would say this. I think the criticism I have is this, and then I'll end it, is that I don't have a problem with people that were uncomfortable with it, but I have a problem with people that believe it was gratuitous and didn't serve the story.
No, then
I think it did.
They're missing the point. Yeah. It's what you just said. Yeah, that I actually find that borderline offensive that there are people who looked at it in that way. So, fair to them is what I say. Fair.
Shame on them.
Shame. All right, next scene. We go back to the fire, and we get the best moment in the episode. And it's all about whether a woman can be a knight. And it's tradition that women are not. And give Tormund all the credit in the world. He has one of the best lines where he just says, "Fuck tradition." And then he kind of follows it up by being a little bit of a sleuth. Like, if I was a king, I would knight you 10 times over. It's like, yeah, I think we have a different definition for what knighted means. But yeah, we get the scene where Jaime says, a knight can knight another, essentially, and he knights now Sir Brienne of Tarth. The tears.
Mm-hmm.
I could. Everything about the scene was just, to me, was just beautiful to behold. I mean, just the emotional. This was where those earlier scenes were leading to. This alone is the story of the episode of Brienne and Jaime, and the fact that there was so much. Everyone there was aware of it. They moved around to watch this. This was something special was happening. You saw the way like Tyrion moved to watch, and Davos is watching, and even as big a sleazeball as maybe Tormund might be, who's the one clapping heartily after it? It's him, And the way Brienne's face, possibly, and not possibly, absolutely, for the first time in the history of the series, splits open into this huge, beaming smile, was just it tugged at the heartstrings like few moments on the show have. I mean, I don't think Game of Thrones has gotten me that much since Hold the Door.
Yeah.
Obviously for very different reasons, except with me having the realization, this is like Brienne, in a lot of ways, this is like Brienne's biggest episode. Because of the moment she had from defending Jaime at the beginning to being knighted by Jaime at the end. And they're like, what that feels like to me? It feels like we just closed Brienne's story. Oh no, I think Brienne's gonna die. And Podrick too, but we're gonna get to that in a minute.
But I mean, if she does, what a send off, and this scene I mean, this scene wrecked me. It wrecked me because you have a character. And I watched it again, and I thought about this. Whoever made the decision, whatever writer decided to make this decision, to have it be with not the leaders, not the bigwigs, but with, sort of the second level people, the middle management, if you will, and not, there was no queen, no king doing this.
Right.
This was them doing it for one of their own. And, she's so composed and so, stoic that when that happens, it meant so much for her. I mean, think about it. Like at some point, a Stark could have done that for her. So, someone could have done this. Nobody ever did.
Right.
Like, they overlooked her. And that moment where, like, the people that she's in that room with do it, and it means the world to her, it just was. It was amazing. And, I'll tell you, the craziest thing about this show is these arcs and these characters are written so well, is that, boy, they've really rehabbed. Jaime Lannister could be the most horrible person that I don't want to die, and I want to get a happy ending in many ways. I don't think it'll happen. But, but this scene knocked it out of the park. And, I get a little teary-eyed just talking about it now. I thought this is one of the moments that's moved me the most through all the seasons of this show.
I agree. Same here. I do like your observation about the people in the room, because it's like a room of lieutenants. These are all people who have been like the right hand of whoever the leaders were, whether it be, the different positions that Jaime himself has held, Tyrion, of course, Davos, of course, Brienne, when, serving under, like, Renly, etc., whatever. And Tormund even kind of deferring to Jon Snow. So they all, you're right, they all have that kind of certain role. I mean, Podrick is more to her, but still. The other thing we probably just to throw into the mix of all this is what makes it much more significant than if it had been done, say like if Sansa had been able to do the knighting, or if Kat had done it, or someone like that, or for some reason Jon, which would be odd, but whatever, is not just that Jaime can do it, but it's how she feels about Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether it could ever be actually said out loud, and probably at this point, if it wasn't in this episode, unless it's a dying breath moment, it's probably not going to happen. She loves Jaime. That's as clear can be, I think. There is more, and I feel that more between, like, say, her and Jaime, and even the resulting chemistry, than, say, between Daenerys and Jon, quite frankly. Maybe you can attribute that to the actors themselves and chemistry. That could be it. But it makes it that much more. No, I'm getting choked up. Wow. In the scene when she looks up at him and during the whole thing, and what makes that scene, and what makes so many other previous scenes and a couple still to come, and why I will defend this episode from naysayers, is that these scenes are all earned. These characters have earned the right for this brief respite before death comes calling, which is what this episode is about. And I can't understand how people don't get that. All right. So, I had to readjust my neck there. I got all bent out of shape there. The next thing that happens, or next scene that happens, is the one thing I meant to mention in the previous podcast, and I forgot. 5 minutes after we recorded, I texted Jamie, I forgot one thing I forgot to mention. The only thing I forgot. That I had wanted to see and was waiting to see Jorah and Lyanna, or Lady Mormont, meet. Whether they've met before or not, I don't think so, because I think she left the estate, or left the castle, whatever you want to call it, left House Mormont years before she would be cognizant of that, whatever. But I was wondering how those two would interact. and she was of course he's insisting that she should go into the crypt as opposed to fight, and of course she's not going to do that. Of course she's going to fight. But she didn't act like, oh, you're the traitor who, betrayed our family's name and honor and so on and so forth. I like that she didn't treat him, because that's what I was expecting. So I'm glad the writers didn't do something as obvious as that they kind of gave Jorah a little bit of a break there. So
and they stayed true to that character. And again, the empowerment of women through this, it's like, oh, do this. No, I'm going to do what I want. I will fight for my people. And like, just what great writing and consistency through the whole episode.
Absolutely. Also, after Lady Mormont does walk away, that's when Samwell shows up and gives Jorah his family sword, Heartsbane. Because that's one giant. That's like the biggest sword I've seen since like the one that Ned Stark used to have, which is always like, how does anyone wield a sword that freaking big anyway? It just seems like it weighs like 100 pounds. But that was kind of a meaningful moment there.
Big time.
Now, I haven't decided if all these things with Jorah in this episode. You know what? I'm lying. I have decided. So add Jorah to the list of, I got a really bad feeling about this. Because between him being given the big sword, which means he can go out like doing a huge heroic death kind of a thing, but the way he spoke to Daenerys earlier in the episode, he's kind of tying things off. Like the stuff with Tyrion and the last bits of important advice to give her. I mean, again, love the character. I would hope. Part of me hopes I hope I'm wrong, but when you see pictures of these people on the front lines, and you figure, yeah, it's one's on the front lines. I wouldn't want to be on the front lines. So I got a bad feeling, but hopefully he won't. But again, I got that thing where in my mind it's like, is there more story for him to be told? I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know.
I see. I mean, the importance, obviously, in this show is stress Valyrian steel.
Yes.
And, you almost see Jorah fighting his way to at least one of the Night Kings and killing it to save Dany or someone, and then, being overwhelmed by other White Walkers or
I can see that.
The dead. And, the if you believe in the Chekhov's gun theory, that sword has been mentioned and shown a few times, we'll see it swung to some great effect.
Oh, absolutely.
All the other Valyrian steel has, and so him getting it, and he's sort of done the Dany, you're in good hands now.
Yes, exactly.
You don't need me anymore. Like, you've got Tyrion is sort of the subtext of that scene with him and Dany.
Right.
I don't think it bodes well for him, but I think he'll go out like a champ.
Right. Oh, by the way, before I mention one thing, just occurred to me as we were talking about, because I was remembering that earlier scene way early in the episode. The "you're a traitor or a fool" scene between Dany and Tyrion. Because does Varys not speak in this entire episode? I don't think Varys.
That's a good question.
I don't think, which is funny because he's certainly he's got a bit of a gift of the golden tongue too. Maybe not as good as Tyrion, but he's definitely right there with him. I don't think he speaks in the entire episode. We certainly see him a bunch of times. And him reacting, looking glum, whatever. But he didn't show up at the hearth. In fact, we don't even. He's one of the characters we don't see when they do the montage, which happens about like 2 minutes later. Just curious. I mean, he's in the episode. Just realized, we never hear him speak. Did he get a reduced paycheck as a result? But just curious.
If he did, it was very minor.
I think I would have made a note of it. I'm gonna say, until someone proves otherwise, he did not speak in the entire episode. I think this is the last time for the episode. So I think the final crypt count was 6. The crypt is mentioned 6 times in the episode, and referencing it being either safe or the safest place was 4. So 4 different times The crypt is mentioned as being the safe or the safest place, and the crypt overall is mentioned 6 times, not including where that we actually see John and Danny in the crypt a couple of minutes later. They don't actually say crypt, but that's where they are. If you want to say just seeing it as a reference, then that's 7, but I think that's cheating. I don't think that's true. So, gee, I wonder what they're trying to tell us. What could possibly happen in a crypt when these forces are attacking and their leader is known for raising the dead? Oh my, what could possibly happen in a crypt? Oh, the possibilities.
Yeah, that's the thing that hit. I mean, if you followed this show a long time, and I'm not one of the snobs who says, oh, I've watched it from the beginning and I hate anyone else that started watching it after that. I have watched it from the beginning, but I think it's great to see the show get recognition, particularly because it's been deserved, and they've really created a quality show, especially this last season. But even even the people that aren't completely immersed in this world, it hit them over the head. Like it hit everybody over the head that
we get
a guy that can raise the dead, and something's happening in the crypt.
We're like, I'm like 2 minutes away from like finishing up the episode here in our recap, rehash, whatever you want to call this podcast right now. But I gotta say, the 2 things I was, a takeaway just to be funny was like, wait, you don't mention the ice dragon, and does no one occur to you? You keep saying put him in the crypt, put him in the crypt. Like you know what he can do, right? You saw it, and you fought ones that were just like skeletons. So it's not like they have to be freshly dead; they could be dead for millennia. So I don't know. I'm not sure who's still buried in the crypt at this point. I don't know if we're going to see former characters on the show who maybe their remains got brought there, maybe without their heads. I don't know if someone sent Rob Stark there with the wolf's head still stitched to his body or not. Although that would be insane if we actually see Rob Stark with the direwolf head before Corona.
God!
Have I mentioned my prediction that I will be both disappointed and shocked if we do not see Zombie Hodor as a member of? He has to. He's returned to Winterfell.
I believe Zombie Hodor will come and face off with Bran.
Has to. And we'll see if Bran can warg into a dead creature or not. Curious. Anyway, I said because we're running longer than I meant to. So we go back to the fire, back to the hearth, back whatever, and we get Podrick singing the song. He sings a song about Jenny of Oldstones. Jamie had actually emailed me or texted me after she watched it something about that moment or about that song specifically. Just calling to the fact that does reference from the books, whereas they did write they wrote out all the words to the song for the show, but the song itself is from the books. It was a song that was something with Rhaegar Targaryen. Ooh, did I actually pronounce that correctly?
Yes, Rhaegar.
And I think it's believed that he even might have written it. I'm seeing if I actually did.
I've read the books, but I believe that the backstory is, I think it's the song Rhaegar Targaryen played at like a tournament, and that's where he met and fell in love with Lyanna.
Right. That's it. That's essentially what she said. I mean, she's. I'm actually just found her email here. Although she might have copied and pasted this out. The song Pod sang, I saw you mentioned on Facebook, was in the book. A few lines. I found this online. Some book readers believe that Jenny's song was actually written by Prince Rhaegar himself. He sang a song at a feast at the tourney of Harrenhal that made Jon Snow's mother, Lyanna Stark, weep. This seems to have been the origin of their love affair, and many think it was Jenny's song that got Lyanna. Rhaegar's facility for song also gets a mention in this episode when Dany is thinking back on him. That's according to Jamie. So there, you got your appearance on our podcast, Jamie. Good job again. So we hear the song, and we get a little montage of what everyone's doing in the last remaining hours before the dead arrive. So or the terrors of the night, actually come to Winterfell. So we see Sansa and Theon sharing a drink, Grey Worm with Sunday, Arya wide awake after her first time while Gendry is sleeping it off. So, nice moment for Podrick and that actor, He's got a nice voice. He's probably going to sound 10,000 times better than what I may do at the end of the podcast. We'll see. But it's also nice. There's a musical tradition with Game of Thrones. They like their songs. I mean, we've all certainly heard the Rains of Castamere a number of times, and then there's the one with the what is it? The beaver or the bear? The Bear and the Maiden Fair. Is that one of the other songs? I think.
Yeah.
And by the way, at the end of the episode, they have Florence and the Machine do a cover of it. And you can actually find the video. HBO does a full video for it online, which basically just incorporates clips from the entire history of the show, including this episode. It's a really good cover of the song. It's like it should be released as a single. It's really that good. It's really powerful. So, kudos to Florence and the Machine. They need me to tell them that. But all this leads to what we've been waiting for. What some of us have been waiting for, at least. Jon and Daenerys in the crypt. And Jon finally tells her. And now we have a number of theories that are sprouting out of this. What will Daenerys do? I think we all figured she was not going to immediately react like she totally believes it. I love the fact that she questioned the fact, so let me get this straight. Your brother and your best friend told you this. That's something no one else knows. That seems a little off to me. The timing seems a little strange to me. Really? That doesn't sound a little wacky to you, Jon? But I guess I was watching her performance in it, and I thought she did a reasonably good job with her reaction and how she, whatever. Of course, the whole thing gets cut off by the horn blowing. Which is, signaling that, hey, guess who's showing up at our front door? Or at least, off in the distance. It's one of those things where I think both of the big revelation scenes in the crypt, to some extent, don't have quite the power that some people want them to. But these are two characters who aren't really very over the top themselves. So I do think that their reactions will be somewhat more understated than one might expect. Her less so than him, because she has had her moments. But I am curious because let's go on the assumption that they both survive next week. I'm not going to say the show's going to pull a Ned Stark on us and kill off Jon next week or something. It is curious to try to figure out where this leads these two, and as far as the Iron Throne, etc. Probably the biggest speculation about the show beyond who's going to die next week is about that. In our closing, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, it puts so many possibilities in play. My first thought was, you definitely know that Jon learned a few things from Ned, because just like when Ned told Cersei what she was up to, that was pretty much the end of Ned. The timing of when Jon did this, I know he felt like he had to do it, but it probably wasn't the best timing.
Yeah.
But Jon is like, hey, something's bothering me. I'm going to get it off my chest. It opens a lot of possibilities. The biggest question I have, does it put Bran and Sam in danger? Suppose something crazy happens and, Dany and Jon survive, but barely, and have to escape or whatever. And then there's just two competing words about who has the throne, but an army that's not strong enough divided to beat Cersei.
Right.
And so there's a battle to control what's left to fight for the Iron Throne. At that point, Sam and Bran are liabilities if they survive.
Right.
And I thought a lot of the criticism of Emilia Clarke's acting in this was unfair because if you look at, I mean, imagine you're on the precipice of getting what you want that you've been told since you were born was your birthright, and you get there, and not only is he telling her this in his family's home, but he's telling her this at the last minute, and she's moved the whole of her forces there to help him, and sacrificed a dragon for him. I think thinking she would flip her lid isn't that. I mean, if you look at it coldly and rationally, that's a hell of a lot to put on a person after what she did for him.
Right. Yes.
And I think Kit Harington should get some credit because he's not allowed to be super expressive. That's never been his character. But he's done some pretty daggone good face acting here and some reaction and with the subtlety of his looks and how much he has to show this weighs upon him. I think what acquitted him well in the scene is that as he's telling her and she's getting upset, he's not rising to meet her level of anger, which I think probably threw her off more because that sort of seemed to make her believe him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I let you do it because it pretty much covers the way I felt about it. I loved you referencing the Ned Stark thing. That was a thought in the back of my head. I'm glad you kind of brought it to the foreground. I was like, oh yeah, that's what it was reminding me of. It's like, hey, maybe not the best time to say this. Maybe just I don't know. Is it really weighing that much on you where you can't? You were able to do the whole war room conversation with everybody pretty okay. Then again, you beat a retreat before she could talk to you. You couldn't have invited her for one more night. Let me see how everything shakes out tomorrow.
Exactly.
Shit's happening at dawn. Well, you see around lunchtime, see where things are at. You want to get into that conversation just yet. Oh, Lordy Lord. So, because, as I mentioned, that horn blows, and then we go out and we end with Tyrion looking out from the dragonstone-studded turrets of the Winterfell walls there, and as we go off into the distance, we see the bearded White Walkers, like the front line, kind of lining up there, and then we cut to credits. We have both already established we both really like this episode. No, so we don't need to keep reiterating that. We've already said that. I kind of think we've any ranting we would have done at the end, I feel like we've kind of done throughout the podcast.
We've kind of sprinkled it throughout.
Yeah.
We sprinkled it throughout the podcast well enough.
Yeah,
I agree.
Again, just 30 seconds, if that. The only thing I want to say is people need to stop using phrases like filler. It's not filler. You don't know what filler means. Then listen to what we just talked about over the last hour and a half. There was character progression. There were storylines tied up. There were things that were resolved, whether it be between Jaime and Daenerys and Sansa and Bran, or what happens with Brienne, or where people are going to be being put in position. It's like chess. We're getting ready for the final battle. That's what this is about. Stop your whining. Okay.
No, I agree. Appreciate that we got to go sit in a room with these characters and spend time. And the last thought I'll share on this is that, 2 years from now, people that get into Game of Thrones won't get to marinate in this episode for a week. They'll watch it and then watch it the next episode immediately.
Right.
We've got to reflect for 2 weeks what all these people mean to us from a storytelling perspective. And, I don't know that TV is going to remain that way, the way it's going with, on demand and streaming. But we are in the midst of a peak TV event that has told a meaningful story that has affected us and will continue to affect us until we see the resolution. We should appreciate that and not rush to the end to get an ending. This was good character, story, heart, humor. Appreciate it. Like, I think when all is said and done, and call me an apostate if you wish, this will be one of the top 10 episodes of this show when it's all said and done.
Wow. Way to go, apostate. No. Agreed. I would also say the people, to speak about it in somewhat less lofty terms, people complain like, oh, there wasn't enough plot progression. It's like, okay, here's a problem I have with that. First of all, you did push these characters to a certain point where they are in their relations with each other. Whether it be Sansa and Daenerys and Jon, etc., 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 etc. So many things we just talked about. That's all forwarding character and plot. Try not to sneeze. Hold on. Went away. If you're going to complain about that being lack of plot progression, then you better complain about an episode like next week, which is going to be 80 minutes of fighting. Battles. That's not plot progression. It's just people either die or don't die. How can you really say that's really different? It's the same thing. Because it's just like, oh, there's people fighting. You know, in 80 minutes of fighting, maybe 5 minutes of death, sprinkled throughout 80 minutes. Otherwise, it's, swords and bones clanging against each other. And those same people are going to love that episode and not realize how foolish they are for not realizing why do you view that differently? Because what are you, 5 years old? You need to see, sparkly lights and things moving around to think that there's more happening? Okay, just getting angry. Idiots.
Well, this week is what all the people are fighting for next week.
Yes.
And if you can't get that, I'm sorry, but this set up what's at stake in the fight, and that's important.
Right. Absolutely. And then in the week after, everyone will be like recounting all the people who died and what they died for and whatever. So pretty much thinking I am of the belief several characters are going to meet their demise. I think there are certain characters that things were either foreshadowed or you're kind of calling your shot via this episode. It's not like I want them to die, but we only got a few episodes left of the series overall. And it's not like you're watching, I don't know. I hate to keep using Mad Men. It's not like you're watching Mad Men where, probably people don't die. Game of Thrones, everybody dies. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of them we've mentioned already. Like Brienne, like Podrick, like Grey Worm, possibly Jorah. Tormund, I think, is a very good chance because he's simply a warrior. I don't know, other than fighting the dead, I don't know what more use you get out of him. I can see her Brienne being affected by that, and then her doing something to fight, and maybe them both dying. Something like that could happen. Characters we don't care about, like Beric. No offense, but who cares? The Knight of the Vale guy could probably die because I forget what his name is all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I am not. They could do a shocker. Right now, I am still holding true that I don't think anyone who's got Stark blood, I don't think is going to die. So I think Saria? Wow, if they got together, maybe. Sansa, Arya, and Jon, whether it be Targaryen or not, or Stark, or actually he's both. I think they're going to be fine. I don't think and obviously you're not killing Daenerys. That would be the biggest shock of all time, I would say, even more than Jon Snow dying in the episode. I'm sure there's probably some people I'm forgetting off the top of my head, maybe because I know, they're going to kill Ed. Who cares? I'm sure they'll kill Ed. But it's like I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also fearing it because I'm feeling like my heart's going to get torn out a couple times watching it, and especially if they pull any like real, like horrible shockers, or I'm not looking forward to the crypt. I'm looking forward to and dreading what's going to happen in the crypt because that could really be bad, but we shall see. We shall see where it's. I'm looking more forward to this than a lot of previous big battle things. More so than, and I'm not saying it's going to be as good as them, who knows, but more so than Blackwater. Maybe more than the Battle of the Bastards, even though watching again, I strangely don't love it as much as I thought I did. I kind of, maybe I didn't love it back then either. I think I like it, but I don't love it. But that was more about just wanting to see Ramsay Bolton, get his just desserts finally, which he does. Or the other kind of battles that we've seen. This is such a big one, and maybe it's because we know we're getting near the end, and they're finally fighting the dead. Winter has come, and we realize, oh, this is good. This could really be bad. So I think Winterfell is going to fall. That's the main thing. And no one discusses an escape plan either. All those plans. They don't mention a dragon, and no one mentions, hey, say we need to get the hell out of Dodge. But of course, I guess there's those tunnels that helped Bran escape once upon a time, so maybe that might be it. But the crypt, I don't know.
There's so much to unpack. I think we have 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Is what the episode is. I told a friend the other day that not since the finale of the Americans, which you and I podcasted about.
Oh yeah, we go.
Have I been as trepidatious about an episode of TV?
Yeah. Because
I remember you and I going into that episode both like, oh my God, I want to know what's going to happen, but I'm so terrified of what might happen.
Yes.
And
I
sort of have a similar feeling about this, that I both want to know, but then I'm worried, I'll get my heart ripped out. But that's the beauty of having a week to ruminate on a good episode of television. That you get to go through this. So
right.
I look forward to it, and I'll leave you with a couple of predictions. I'll do my predictions. Cool. I think Tyrion will manage a very hardy defense of Winterfell, but Winterfell will fall from within from the crypt. And I think that will sort of be his redemption. I mean, his high point in the show has been the Battle of the Blackwater. And I think we'll see a callback to that.
Yeah.
I think that will be the big thing. I don't think the dragons will be as big a part of the battle as people think. I think the dragons have to stay on the board longer because we've still got those crossbows in King's Landing to deal with, Qyburn's crossbows. Mm-hmm. I think they will play a part, but I think it's going to be a defeat, and who knows then where we go. And then we've got fractured alliances. I do predict there will be one big death that we don't see coming. And as for who it is, I
think you're right. I don't want you to be right, but I think you're right about that too. But I don't have the guts to actually just pluck one of those bigger names out and say it, because I keep coming up with reasons why not. Like it's really tempting to say Jaime, but I still have the feeling that Jaime has to have something more to do with the death of Cersei. Although one could say, well, maybe Jaime dies on the field here. Arya gets a hold of Jaime's face, and she's the one who actually kills Cersei, finally lopping off the person who's at the top of her list, but as Jaime, so you kind of get it both ways. Of course, did I mention last week my big prediction that who's going to end up on the throne? It's going to be Arya wearing someone else's face. Just saying. Yeah.
That's outstanding. But
every prediction I have is about Arya wearing another face. It's just I've just decided.
Yes.
She's going to be wearing the Night King's face.
I like that, and I like co-host Jamie's theory last week, but I believe Jaime survives after Tyrion successfully navigates the defense of Winterfell. At some point, he is killed by the crossbow, and I believe that's the impetus for Jaime Lannister to kill Cersei. Because if one thing, those two brothers have always been there for each other when no one else was. And I think that Tyrion eventually goes down and it's Cersei's doing, and that's what causes Jaime to kill Cersei.
But what about Bronn? He's been tasked with killing both of them. Anyway, we'll go.
Well,
we'll go on for another hour.
We could do this. I could do this all night. That's sort of my prediction. I really enjoyed talking about this. It's a great conversation, and I hope all the listeners out there really enjoy the next few days thinking about it and just get ready to savor a great piece of television.
Wow. Well said, Giant Spain. Well said. So, and while you're doing that ruminating, hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. You might enjoy ruminating on our Facebook page. It's the Serious TV Drama Podcast page on Facebook. You can track us down that way. Like the page and join the conversation about Game of Thrones as well as many other television series. You can also find us on the iTunes the same way. Type in Serious TV Drama Podcast. You can subscribe to our feed as well as rate and review us. In fact, you can just Google us, and you'll find us in a whole bunch of other places. I guess that's how I'm assuming people are hearing the show, because we can't just be playing for just a few people. Anyway, and finally, you can follow us on the Twitter. We do send out the occasional tweet, at least for the show. What's our handle? It's at STVD Podcast. STVD as in Serious TV Drama. So, Brian, thank you so much for your yeoman-like work here, filling in. I feel there's a very good chance we may be hearing your voice again before this season is said and done. If I can figure out a way to make it to record a conference call, maybe I will. Got to be a way to do it.
If asked, Scott, I will do my duty.
Okay. That's what she said. No, she did. Why would she say that? Oh, I was thinking about duty. Anyway. Want to thank everyone else for sticking with us. I know this podcast ran a little bit longer than I intended, but I think it was a really solid conversation, and we didn't crap on some listeners who might have were waiting for me to vilify them for not liking the episode as much as I did. That's childish. I'm not going to do that. But you're stupid. Anyway, no, I kid. So that's all I have to say. I have not been drinking, but I'm going to try to give this a shot. Again, this podcast is a one-take only podcast, no editing. I screw this up. That's just the way it is. So it'll just be a memory we all have of, oh, remember how he ended the podcast that time? Yeah, he did. So I am going to close with a little bit of a song for you. Me, 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 me. High in the halls of the kings who are gone, Jenny would dance with her ghosts, the ones she had lost, and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most, the ones who'd been gone for so very long, she couldn't remember their names. They spun around on the damp cold stones, spun away all her sorrow and pain, and she never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave. No, she never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave.